Okay, I'm gonna open the Facebook in my iPad just for us to monitor. Let's see if there's any question.
Mm,
Okay, the live is there.
nice.
The live is in, eh? Okay. Is it there?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, yeah. The live is there. Yep.
Doctor, are you recording the session?
Want to record? Yes.
I think Dr. Marina has to record. Good.
Yeah. Marina will have to record after
So
this.
we'll start. Once we start, then we'll start recording.
Okay.
All right.
We're just gonna wait until Khai comes in and then we can start soon.
All right.
All right.
Okay, it is almost 1 minute before our 8 p.m. session together. So let me just spotlight everybody if I can. Right. Okay, all good. Okay, good evening, everybody. How are we doing today? Marina, Khai, Shahril, are you ready for today's talk?
Good.
Ready
I
as
think we're
I
ready.
ever can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so for all of us who are watching either through Zoom or through our Facebook Live, welcome. This is our annual Borak Session organized by ACBS Malaysia Chapter. And this year we have our committees, more than one committee here, will be providing their own sharing. And I would like to take the opportunity to say a very much thank you to all of you for your time. And I find today's round of speakers interesting because none of us are in the same profession, even though we're on the same field. We have Marina working as a psychiatrist, who is our president-elect of our ACBS Malaysia Chapter. We have Khai, who works as an educational psychologist, who is also our committee as members at large. And we have Shahril, who works as a counselor, and he's our secretary. And there's me, Kah Mun. I am the president of the ACBS Malaysia Chapter, and I work as a clinical psychologist. But all of us are here today with a common value and common reason, which is to contribute to this very important conversation here. And I hope that we will have a meaningful conversation. And to those of you who have questions, just put it in our chats or in the Facebook live chat, and we will get to those questions at the end of the session today. So without further ado, let us start off with Marina to start off with our topic, mental health in humanitarian emergency. Also to ensure that we all start with a shared understanding, let's begin with the foundational term itself. The word disaster can mean different things to different people. From either a natural catastrophe to even a personal crisis is a disaster for all of us. From your professional perspective, Marina, and also for the sake of today's discussion, how would you define disaster or crisis in context of mental health response? And what makes an event a humanitarian emergency?
Okay, thank you, Kah Mun, for highlighting me as the first speaker. I think we all know the definition of disaster, but I think the most important thing is we how we define it, in a sense that the disaster means something that is something you didn't expect. It can either be natural disaster like flooding or flood, earthquake, volcano eruption, whatever, natural disaster. But there can also be another disaster, which are the man-made disaster like wars, famine, those kind of things that happens. But nothing is as expected, because if it's expected, then most probably it doesn't become a disaster. You didn't expect this is gonna happen, but something about disaster, some of the disaster is something that we can actually predict, like flood. We know already when the flood is gonna happen. We are able to predict, or although 50-50 lah, is gonna happen or not happening. Okay, earthquake also. Okay, with the monitoring, something that we can predict and getting prepared for it. But what if we are unprepared. Okay, what if it is first time that you went through that kind of disaster? We do have certain disaster that just happened, never happened before, suddenly it happened, something out of, never crossed our mind that would have happened. Maybe we're so used to flood, but I think nowadays the flood is happening to places that is not usually we get flood. Like suddenly, oh, KL flood. It's like, what? Usually it's like, on the East Coast side, Kelantan, Terengganu, and Pahang side. Okay, but what about the rest? What does it mean to you when you heard the word disaster? Khai or Shahril?
For me, for me, disaster, I think it's important to differentiate lah disaster and personal crisis kan in the terms of today's topic especially. Because to be honest, a personal disaster, a personal crisis can be a disaster as well. But in terms of today, we're not talking about that. We are focusing on the humanitarian side of things. The crisis, yes. But for me, yeah, same as what Dr. Marina has said before. I think that is already what you say, very concise definition.
I
I
think
don't have
don't
anything
call
to
me
add.
Dr. Marina. Just call me Marina. I think we are still,
Okay.
all of us are like, if Kah Mun doesn't call me Dr.
Yes.
Marina, Marina.
Actually, yeah, one of the things that we consciously do in our community and our committee is we do not get addressed using our profession like doctor
Yeah.
and that in a way helps with it's like we're all here in the same level, regardless whether president-elect, secretary or any, we're still here together.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought because we're going public, so I need to be a little bit more
Nah,
formal
no
or
need.
anything like that,
Just we
kan?
say who we are. Just go with the
Alright.
flow.
yeah. So yeah, I think these are really, really good definitions that we want to start off with to guide into next discussion. So let's move from the definition now to the people involved in this emergency. That would include the survivor side and also the responders. So again, from your professional or personal experiences, what is a primary psychological challenge or unmet need that you've observed in the immediate aftermath? Meaning, what do people really need in those first 24 to 72 hours, beyond, of course, the obvious things like material aid and so on and so forth? Yeah. Open to any of you all to start first.
I think I'll start first. So I guess that through our discussions and preparation for this event that we realized that one thing that, and also through an act kind of lens, that during disasters, we don't really prepare the space and the time for emotions to be expressed sufficiently, unfortunately, because most of the time when disasters happen, we as a community, as responders to it, as the general public, the first thing that we think of, the first response is the physical part of it. So the food, the rescuing them, the shelter and stuff like that. But those are very, very important for the first initial response to it. But we also kind of need to remember that the long-term effects are more on the mental health side, the attitudes, the trauma, the PTSD that could come from the disasters itself. Those are things that through mental health support, in a way, we can try to create a better support system for long-term sustainability and recovery from the disaster itself. So I guess just the idea that we need to make space for the emotions and the thoughts and the craziness that is happening around that person. Yeah.
That's a really, really good point. Focusing on the emotions of that person. What about the rest?
It is about the ground level reality kan, whatever on the ground that we are feeling. So previously, in a few years back, I was involved in MHPSS of PKD MUA. and also MHPSS of Hospital Permai during COVID. So what I can see from there, what people really need is information. The right and correct information is very important because they are confused. They are in a crisis. They want to know what's happening, what's around them, where are their family, etc. So the what is going to happen, something like that, kan. So what's important in through the crisis or disaster, humanitarian disaster, is we need to convey the correct and also accurate informations towards the victims themselves and towards the other responder and those kind of thing. So that is important as well because without information, people will be they are already in survival mode, trying to survive to get things, but then their mind will be a little bit thinking about where to go next, what to do next, what is happening. So with the right information, spread through the right channels. If we have the right channels to give them to them, then it's actually would be a lot helpful for them to sort out what they are going to do, the next steps, and can keep a little bit of their mind at peace and focus on the next steps instead of all over the thing lah. So that is one that I saw for myself. For example, during COVID as well, there's a lot of misinformation being what you say spread out, and that can cause a little bit of panic towards the whole community itself. Same as well about when I was in MHPSS more, there are issues about what you say go out on social media that is not really correct, that actually not really helpful towards the responder themselves, towards the people there as well. If they would sometimes it's like kind of incitement or information that is not needed or not verified can cause more damage lah. It will be unhelpful for the victims themselves. That's what I would like to add.
Yeah, I would say to recap what you just said, Shahril, is it's at the point where everything is chaotic. Everybody is on very high alert, responders and the victims as well, survivors, and having bite-sized guidelines, where to go, what to do, immediate responses. If you need help, go here. I think that would be more helpful, especially during the first 24 to 72 hours. Some form of like a centralized kind of information giving, information sharing. Yeah. Marina, anything to add on to what Khai and Shahril has shared?
Yeah, I think to add on towards that information sharing, I think it's very important to the bystanders, to everybody, the victims, to the responders as well, because information is very, very, very important. Because when wrong information are being shared, it can cause a lot of havoc, and it doesn't help the the situation at all. And but sometimes news travel very, very fast, although it may not be the truth, or it may be. I remember when we had this disaster is ongoing, you've heard the disaster that had happened to before, the burning kind of incident. And at that point I was in a different hospital, but somehow we were given a lot of these rumors about things that had happened, and it wasn't exactly the truth. Okay, only later on in the evening when things quiet down, then only then we know exactly what's been happening, what's the truth. So it's not just about getting the information, and it's about us deciding, are we going to spread this information? Are we sure this is the truth and we're going to spread it? So people may start getting rumors out there, but us also at the other end, we are also responsible in ensuring that the information that we share are actually the true information, because it can cause a lot of havoc. It can cause, especially to the family members. What if the family are so far away and they're like looking for information, they're seeking for information, and somehow all this information are coming to them and they thought is the actual truth. people may get angry, people may, they may get into a panic mode, and it doesn't help the situation. It may cause more damage rather than helping out. Yeah.
Those are really, really good point. And I think this is a really good time to transition to workable versus unworkable intervention. There's often, whenever there's a disaster or a crisis, there's always a rush to do something because we want to help. I think even as Malaysians or even as mental health practitioners, everybody wants to do something to help because there's a need. But we also know that not all help is workable because it is dependent on the timing, dependent on the context. So based on all three of your experiences, what would you say would be the most workable and effective psychological support practices in a post-crisis setting?
Okay, let me start. I think the best is as a psychological support is for you to be there as a support. When you hear as a support, it's really meant as a support. You're not supposed to be there to hinder all the work that's being done by the first responders. The first person who's there was supposed to save all the victim, who's supposed to be more doing all the groundwork. So you're there at the background as a support because you are really needed there, because I think partly when we're doing psychosocial support, it's also about ensuring that people are help them in regarding in a certain way to uh to kind of like help them to, okay, these are the people who are, like, say, let's say the bomber or the police are the one who is arranging everything, the organizer. So we say, okay, we just follow them and kind of like follow their instruction. So we're the one who's, I think is good as well for us to kind of like help them out, kind of like, okay, just point them out. Okay, these are the police, these are the firefighters that are gonna help you out. Okay, let's see how can they help you out. At the same time, if they are crying or they are in a panic mode, just for you to just stay there with them, just be there with them at that point, at that moment. Because as a human being, we do need to process all those emotions. But sometimes what we do is we try to suppress all those emotions because we see that as weakness, and we see that as a way that, no, 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 you're not supposed to be this way. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to really pick yourself up so that you can actually help yourself or help others. When at that moment, sometimes just letting them to be in that, to be in that state just for a while, allow them to process things, then maybe then only afterwards will allow them to actually start moving to whatever that matters most to them, either finding their family members or getting things sorted out, figuring things out, or just simply getting the actual needs that the basic needs that they need, such as food or information or even water.
So from what you're sharing here, it seems like in terms of psychological support, our mental health practitioners are not the first line at this point. However, we are more of like a background, kind of like reinforcers.
Yeah.
So who this can be open to perhaps Shahril, since you are very involved during the COVID time, who would be the first line of people, since we tend to be at the back seat first?
And the first line typically would be the either the uniform guys, the police, the firemen, the military, and all those people. They are good at getting people to safety and make sure the safety of the places. And then the second one is actually mostly the JKM officer, the welfare department. They are very good at like giving out aids, giving out the what they need, preparing the shelter, giving food aid, and those kind of stuff. So they are typically the first liner. And medical professionals like the medical doctors, MA nurses are also the first liner as well. Of course, they give the physical health, they give treatment, and also all kinds of medical help on the ground. So they are the first liner. To add on, usually they are the uniform, the medical personnel, they are in the red zone or the yellow zone. And most of us, if we do the MHPSS, the mental health professional, we will be in the green zone at the shelter and those kind of things, meaning that they are already in a safe space. Physically, they are safe.
Mm.
Yeah. So mostly of the JKM side, also some of them will be there lah, to take care of the basic needs. And we will be there for mental health professional will be there. And one of the thing that we add on,
Mm.
we give them space for them to place. And one other thing that we can do also, we affirm them. We help them to be a little bit more grounded. We use in accents, we use mindfulness, and we ensure them this is a grand zone. You're already in a safe space. You are relatively safer than where you were before, something like that lah. That is
Mm.
something that is what we do. So that's a difference lah.
Yeah.
Usually they would already have that coordination of green zone, red zone, and those kind of zoning for disaster response.
I think that's really helpful. Then that helps us to know what our roles are. Different profession has different level of roles that we do, and how can we contribute together and ensure that we're not kacauing each other's jurisdiction also. Which then brings us to, and probably something that Khai also can chip in for this would be, even also as importantly, what are common approaches or assumptions that are not workable or perhaps even counterproductive during this post-crisis setting? We're talking about also between 24 to 72 hours, the first few hours here.
Okay, yeah. So I think linking back to what Marina and Shahril shared just now, like Shahril mentioned that we as mental health professionals will be working within the green zone. But if we think a bit in terms of like emotions and thoughts, right? I think as mental health professionals, we come in to provide also like a neutral zone for the emotions to be there. We're not there trying to solve problems or trying to make you feel happier or trying to take away the so-called negative emotions and thoughts, like what the misconception about mental health professional is, like we are there to make you happier. No, we are not there to make you happy. We are there just for you to process whatever is happening with you. There's no positive or negative. There's no bad or thought or good or bad emotions or thoughts. It's just all happening within that space, that context. So from an act perspective, like Shahril mentioned just now, is that we will start incorporating stuff like dropping anchor, grounding stuff. The main point is that a lot of people get wrong is that don't try to solve the problem at that point. The problems from a mental perspective are too big to be solved. The first step is just to make space and allow for the emotions and the thoughts to flow through, and to a bigger extent, just let them be crazy for the first couple of hours or maybe the first 24 hours when the disaster happens, because it is a very traumatic situation for everyone involved, including the victim and the rescuers and the community and even us as general public. So we just need to allow for whatever is happening to happen first, and then we only start to really look into how do we actually support the mental health side moving forward. Yeah.
So I believe is when you say crazy, it's more of allow them to be in distress. I think that's what you
Yep.
mean. Because it's only
Yeah.
natural when we are in this disaster, you're stricken by disasters, then of course it's natural that we will all be in high distress. And so we want to create that space here. So what would be counterproductive would be then trying to, let's say, try to stop that person from crying. That would be those kind of stuff, right? Are there other examples that can be counterproductive during that time as well? I see Shahril grinning. Hopefully he says something there.
Yeah, come on, Shahril.
Because I'm always critical about other people's practice. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, as a person, sometimes I mean, as a Malay Muslim person, we tend to hear this a lot. Okay, kadang-kadang ada hikmah, something like that when people are going through things. But For us mental health professionals, we already know that sometimes that may not align with the victims themselves values. Maybe after a few times, after a few days, maybe you can say something like that if they are someone who's religious. But during the crisis themselves, you shouldn't say something like that. That would be like later they will blame God or something like that. Something worse can be happening if you bring up religion into it. And typically that's what happened to what I say a majority of responders because they don't really know other approaches. So I think it's good to bring this up that it's not that we don't believe religion as something that is very helpful, but that is reserved for another time when they are not in crisis. In crisis, we should let religion take a step back first. We make sure they are grounded first. We allow them to feel sad first, and then afterwards we bring up that one lah.
I think unless the client themselves or that
Mm.
person himself bring it up, I think then you can
Mm.
talk about it. If not, otherwise just don't not say don't speak about it, but it's just that giving those kind of advices may actually backfires.
To
I remember somebody was that a patient of mine was telling me that she got very angry when somebody just advised her when she lost somebody whom she loved very much, saying, "Oh, it will be replaced by somebody's better." She was like so pissed off up till now. She like, you cannot say something like that. You know, she lost somebody who's very important to her, and you just say, "Oh, it will be replaced by something better." So I was like opening my mouth when she told me that. I was like, so be
Mm.
careful. Be careful. Yeah.
I would say that the intention is to bring comfort, but the result in the end became more distressing. And also to cater for our English-speaking viewers, kadang-kadang ada hikmah, it's, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, Shahril, is roughly translated to there's a reason behind what God has done or is
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
I think that
Correct.
would be the
Yeah.
answer to that. And it is not about religion not being important. I would say you can bring in spirituality and religion depending on context and timing. I would say that like praying for comfort to the victims, the responders would be helpful. Praying for strength for the responders, because I would say there will be vicarious trauma also. I think that would be a better thing than to say, or God will replace with somebody better, or there's a there's a higher meaning to this during the first 24 to 72 hours. And I would say that from what you are saying, especially if that person is grieving, we really need to learn and discern what to bring in and what not to bring in. So it is not about good versus bad, is about workable versus unworkable interventions during that context and time. I think that am I capturing that properly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and we actually have also gone a little bit into applying the intervention, the model. And of course, as a chapter of ACBS, we do need to look through our CBS lens, or perhaps for tonight, more towards the ACT lens, because that's what all of us here are most familiar with. So how can we increase psychological flexibility using the different ACT processes like acceptance, values, committed action to practically applied in a, I would say, low resource, high chaos crisis environment? Because at that point, I would think that long-term therapy is not an option. We don't have that much resources when there's a lot of people at one go. So then how can we use this psychological flexibility model to perhaps foster resilience or prevent long-term trauma effectively? Yeah.
All right. I think I'll start. I would say
Sure.
use ACT on yourself first, because at that moment, really everything is so chaotic. So you do need to ground yourself first, so that then you can start seeing things. So you will not allow, because sometimes when we are in those kind of situation, especially if your profession, you're are taught to solve things, like make things better. You're supposed to heal. As a doctor, I'm supposed to heal people. I'm supposed to treat people. Okay? But sometimes in certain situation, you cannot be that problem solver. You
Mm.
cannot be solving problem. You cannot be treating everybody. So in order for you to decide, okay, what's my next step? Is for us to use to ground ourselves, okay? Make ourselves grounded, notice things, observe things, and then uh, remember back what are our values here. Use the value to guide us to actually decide, okay, what am I supposed to do? And at the same time, using the same grounding technique, the mindfulness, to kind of like allow us to see the person's reaction, either the first responders or the victims, the survivors. How are they responding? What are their reaction? Maybe then it gives us a much more perspective, and kind of allow us to kind of, okay, this is, maybe this might help the way that I'm approaching this situation, rather than us being in that problem solving mode and just decide, okay, this is my value say I need to help. Sometimes that value doesn't become the actual value. It becomes something that you are like, no, I must be helpful. Instead of guiding you, it became more of your role, so it doesn't help the situation. So I would say, use act first on yourself, so that you can actually allow yourself to teach those skills, such as grounding, to the survivors or the responders.
That's
Yeah.
a really, really good reminder, Marina. Like us as mental health practitioners, those who are also responders during this crisis and disaster, we need to practice psychological flexibility on us. Kind of like take a deep breath. And if you need to cry, please go to a corner and cry too, and then come
Right in
back.
front of the victim.
Yeah, that's really, really good reminder. How about the rest, Shahril and Khai?
I go first. I'll just add on a little bit from what Marita and Kah Mun said just now. Just the act of breathing itself is something that interesting that we are not really in control if you really think about it. It's an unconscious thing. But mindful breathing is a process that a lot of people don't realize how impactful it can be until you actually go into it. So this is what I teach my clients and some of my students also, is that the first the first step of breathing to relax is actually not to breathe in. First step itself is just to breathe out, just to empty your lungs of all the carbon dioxide that's in your body, because those are the waste that is happening, that is accumulating in your body during your daily life, and even more during stressful events, because you're palpitating, you're breathing very fast, all the waste CO2 is in your body. So the first step is just to take a second, 5 seconds, just breathe out all the CO2 in your body, take in fresh oxygen with controlled breathing as much as you can, hold it there, and then hold it there out. So I feel like that is probably one very basic but important grounding technique that we can try to impart in our own daily lives, and especially even more important in disaster situations where everyone is in a chaos mode. So the first step in ACT is that we want to try to control the physiological part of it, because that is something that we need to practice on. So even breathing itself is something that we can try to impart and practice more. Yeah.
So what you're saying that like in the situation of high crisis and low resources, everything is chaotic. A lot of things are not within our control.
Mm,
If we can focus on something that's within our control, that would be our physiological responses. Then
mm,
that is also an action and a type of behavior that is also values driven in terms
yeah.
of helping, providing psychological
Mm,
support. It could also look into us breathing together with the
mm,
people that whoever can be responders, survivors, victims, anybody there. And that in itself is very powerful during this chaotic
mm.
moment. Okay, yeah, thank you so much for that. Shahril, anything to add on in terms of how can we apply ACT into creating psychological flexibility?
For the long term, during that disaster itself, Or do you mean like in general or something like that?
During the disaster itself,
During the disaster itself, I think it's pretty.
24 to 72
Sorry,
hours.
24.
24 to 70 hours.
Yes, I think for whatever Marina and Khai already said is actually already covered a lot. And at the same time, for ACT perspective, what I might want to add is about respecting our own values and respecting others' values as well. Um, yeah, because sometimes there is some sort of community building in disaster place in the green zone, right? Like find help with within community and within each other. But certain people will react by isolating themselves, something like that. But that is some sort of space as well. And somehow I feel like as long as like the 24 hours, 72 hours can we shouldn't really impose what we think people need into them. So that is kind of related a little bit with what I said earlier about saying religion or something like that. If they come out with that, they are very religious, they want help in terms of having other people together around them, then we should build that. But then if they are someone who are in the shelter and then they just want some time to be alone, some space, we should give them space. If that is their values, that are what they needed at time. So we shouldn't try to, oh, come join the other kids to play around, something like that. That would be maybe not helpful. Come join the community, masak, something like that. Come help cook or come eat. So we should allow that as well. That is for me lah. What I may add.
That's also something important, being aware and noticing our behaviors, whether is it addressing the need of the person or in fact addressing our need in wanting to help and thinking that's best for them. Then that is also a form of also like what Marina said, apply ACT to ourselves, being aware and accepting that perhaps what this person need is needing time alone, and we give space while we still remain vigilant in observing and seeing that there's no self-harm behavior, there's no regression happening. I think everybody would be in the observer's mode, noticing that as well. Yeah, that's actually a very important reminder for that. Okay, so we have started about, yes, go
I
ahead,
just want
Marina.
to add a little bit in saying that, we're just looking into people who's isolating and showing sadness, but we must not forget about anger as well. Anger might appear as well during the situation, and usually this is the one that we cannot manage well, because sometimes anger, because we are also in a state where we're also on a high level, our emotions are on a higher side, also we're also stressed out by the situation where things might escalate, and usually anger are the things that we are not able to, we always mismanage. Sometimes I think we have to remember to allow anger to be there as well, because it allows them to ventilate, and it kind of helps them to process the situation as well. Anger. Mm.
How would you recommend that we behave in terms of, like you say, responding to anger from another person?
I think we need to assess like you said just now, risk assessment. That is very important. If there are no risks to others or to themselves, I think we just allow that person to just ventilate their anger. They're just angry. Allow them to shout, allow them to say whatever it is, because I think afterwards they'll be able to calm down. It's just they need to voice it out. But if we escalate, we escalate the matter, kind of like shut up, you're stressing the other people, or maybe you can bring them to another space where they can actually just simply talk it out. They can just simply shout if they need to, in which we never really addressed anger. We always treat them more of a problematic person, someone, who's not cooperative. Instead, if we allow the anger to actually run its course, they will be able to be more helpful. Most probably the most helpful person that is around. It's just at that moment they are in the heightened moment where the anger is there. They just need to let it out. Yeah.
Yeah, so addressing these emotions actually would be beneficial in preventing long-term distress or anything that will be very harmful for themselves.
Mm.
I think that's a really good emphasis as well.
I
I
think
think,
it also can, if to add on, it can also apply with anger about the mass public reaction to a disaster or something like that. You know that there are a lot of anger when we heard of some news about this kind of certain things, a lot of emotions. But then, is it workable to what you say, to respond a certain way? So, like Marina said, if it's in the zone itself, it's actually good to if we as a responder can allow them to ventilate in a more workable way without disturbing others or escalating things. But then for the larger public, mass public, I think it's best if you ventilate not through social media and aggravate everything
Yeah.
else also.
Agree.
Mm.
Yeah,
Agree.
that is
Yeah.
what I want to add lah.
So perhaps finding a support system, a community would be more workable than to air your grievances online, social media, so on and so forth.
Mm.
Like you say, it can
Uh,
also affect others around us as well, right? Yeah.
I think another thing I wanted to add, I think in general Asian culture, when disasters happen, right, we tend to gravitate towards sympathy instead of empathy. Like we tend to go on a higher pedestal and we try to kasihan the victim, kasihan lah, sayang lah, or you lost everything, so you are in a very vulnerable state, so you are lesser of a human being because you are in a disaster. But if we shift that mindset to more of an empathetic kind of view, it's just that yes, you've been through this, you are in the crisis mode. Of course, you're gonna have extreme behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. It's just something you need to go through. So that's the difference between sympathy and empathy in a way. We validate that you've been through this with empathy. You're gonna have some extreme responses, but this does not define you as a person. This is just you going through this period, this 24 to 72 hours, or even longer, depending on the situation. So I feel like maybe as a society in general, we need to try to emphasize more on the empathetic part, just be at the same level, understanding that this is a person going through a crisis. This could happen to anyone. Whatever he or she is doing could happen to ourselves. It's not just because he or she is not as good as a person or as capable of a person just because he's angry or sad or crying or just emo. It's just what humans do. We just need to be there and let them and go through it with them. Yeah.
So difference between sympathy kind of response versus empathy kind of response, and also validating the distress that they're experiencing as really part of the process when we're stricken by disaster or crisis. Yeah. Any more before I go on to our next question on the more broader system? Yeah.
I just want to add on in disaster, not just about the survivors. We have to remember about the first responders as well. So our job as a mental health professional is to look after the first responder as well, to know where they are also in crisis, because we do know in rescue sometimes they do develop PTSD symptoms afterwards. They become traumatized. It's for us to allow them to kind of like, yeah, it's part of you. You're scared, things has happened, you've went through this kind of situation, to allow them to process things out. I think we must not forget to take care of the first responders as well, the police, the firefighters, the armies. They also need that psychological support.
I think a lot of us often overlook this part because perhaps on the outside, on the outwards, they look okay. And we're like, hey, you are the rescuer, so I look up to you in taking care of me. So having this reminder that us as the mental health professionals to be the person to create that awareness, psychoeducation, and also make space for our responders is actually very important in ensuring there's continuity instead of like a short term, everybody go all out and then everybody burns out. Then when the next disaster comes in, we don't have enough manpower, or it's just more distress over more distress, and then one day it's just everything just bursts out. Yeah, very, very good reminder on that. Okay, so let's go on to our next question. We've discussed individual needs, we've discussed intervention models. So let's zoom into the broader system now. So we all know basic needs, safety, food, especially clear communication and information are very important to the psychological well-being of a person who are in disaster, whether you're talking about responders or even the survivors themselves. So from your experience, how can mental health support be effectively coordinated amongst the government agencies, NGOs, community leaders? And what does successful coordination would actually look like, if any? I hope my question is not too difficult now.
I think let me try to answer it first. Yeah. So I guess it links back to one of the first things that we discussed about, which is information. So unfortunately, during disasters with social media nowadays, there's gonna be a lot of misinformation, a lot of so-called fake news going around. So as a community, as a public, in a way, we need to be able to distinguish between the proper channels of information, the proper sources of information that are at least somewhat evidence-based, rooted in the real world, instead of just going off what is trending or what is political in a way, and what is popular with the current emotions of the day, or even during disasters, what is popular with the current emotions of the hour. It could come to that. So we need to, as a community, as the public in general, we need to take a step back and try to distinguish and take information from the proper channel. So in disasters in Malaysia, we can look through OH. That's a very good source of information, which during COVID we relied on a lot compared to even political parties or social media stuff. We try to rely on the official information and sources of information as much as we can. So I think that is one thing that we need to learn as a society in the social media area, that's learning to filter out the proper information and absorbing the proper information. Yeah.
That's also, yeah, very important, especially when we can get a lot of information overload and fatigue sets in. And usually whoever is the loudest, that would be the first that will be showing in our algorithm. Right, yeah, it is true. Anything else in terms of coordination and communication?
I think allowing all this, all this ketua kampung, the village head, to teach them at least, just to allow them to kind of like uh to validate things out, to notice when people needs help, what kind of help that they need. You know, I brought this up because today I just went to this World Mental Health celebration, World Mental Health Day celebration in Batu Pahat, and they actually kind of like they launched this key mindset in which they actually are training all this pegawai, all the DO district officer, and also all the village head to actually help them in, let's say, in crisis. Let's say any disaster happen, because Batu Pahat also, they also have lots of flood, but so this allows those people to kind of like um like something that we used to say is a task shifting, kind of like task shifting kind of work. Task shifting meaning it's not that we wanted them to take over our role. It's more of, it allows them to kind of like empathize, to kind of like allow them to actually link to the correct, the correct pathway to kind of like where they can actually get help, rather than they also don't know what to do. They also don't, we
Mm.
guide them so that it will actually allow the process to be much smoother, okay, and it can be more helpful. I think
Almost like
those kind
a
of thing helps, having those kind of programs.
So it's almost like a systematic training then.
Yep.
Different people, different levels, different roles, and
Mm.
then linking to the different resources.
Yep.
So everybody kind of know, okay, when somebody comes to me, okay, this is my toolbox here, these are my resources, and then I learn how to shift to, or rather direct them to the actual proper people. And I guess the mental health professionals can be part of this training,
Yep.
how to respond, like you say, respond appropriately. No false promises such as like, oh, everything will be better soon, or I can do this for you now. But in actual fact, perhaps life happens and we can't commit to that. But people might hold on to that promise. Yeah. Anything else to add, Shahril, perhaps?
To add on, like I said before, kan, I am fortunate enough to have been as a pegawai psychology counselling in PKD MUA,
Mm,
in which their disaster response is like really good.
mm,
They are really well coordinated. I feel like the DO, the Pegawai Kesihatan Daerah, or district health officer, the district officer, and all the badan beruniform, the uniform people, the responder, even the MO, lead MO of our mental health and psychosocial support team in our daerah is like really fast, and our counselor from welfare department from JKM are also like they are seemingly like one WhatsApp group. So
mm,
like any communication between them is like very fast, and they do meetings like every 2 days or something like that, so that
mm,
they can coordinate properly. And that is something they know each other work, and then they know which part needs more people, which part needs something, and then they are really fast at implementing it as well. But then if want to say the community that is not really that effective is like what Marina said before. I think most of people who experience this kind of disaster or have been through the kind of training, they actually know how to coordinate, how to work better, how to find whatever is needed.
mm,
But a few area during my experience were when the ketua kampung is a new ketua kampung,
mm.
village head. So that is why that kind of training is good lah, to actually give exposure for them to be prepared. For that one, when it's a new ketua kampung, because certain reason, uh, it becomes something quite, what you say, co- quite,
Political in a way.
political, yeah. It's political, and there are people who claim that they don't get the help that they seek because the ketua kampung doesn't know everyone and those kind of thing lah. So it becomes a little bit difficult on the community if the community head is someone who have is not that experienced, or maybe have their own agenda.
So I would say that successful coordination will also look like the leaders that are put in place are those who are really here to serve the public, to serve those who are in need of help. And I would say perhaps in an ideal world, we can replicate this system to every state in Malaysia, and also to leverage on not just the public sector, but the private sector as well, and the NGOs, that we kind of almost have like you said, like a WhatsApp group where every key personnel are in the loop, and we can get things moving fast and smooth. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything more before I have just one last concluding question before we end the night?
I think there's something interesting comment here
Hmm.
in Facebook.
Hmm.
Somebody comment that about secondary trauma via mass media posts. Do you think?
Hmm.
Yeah, I find it's as an interesting comment, because we do know that social media posts it can evoke a secondary trauma.
Hmm.
Mm. So anybody who wants to elaborate
Comment
on
on this?
that? Yeah.
Me, I feel like, okay, this is what one of my students, not one, actually a couple of my students told me. So it's about the war that's ongoing in Gaza and stuff like that. So my two of my kids told me my Muslim students told me that the things that they see as ads on YouTube for humanitarian aid to Gaza and stuff like that, those are things that are supposed to be in movies. Those are things that are not real. It's like, but because it's happening now in Gaza, they are bombarding it because of the algorithm. They know that who they are, their background and stuff like that. They are being bombarded with all this secondary traumatic videos, images, information. So I would say that it is very, very real. But linking it back to ACT, so what are the committed actions you can put in based on the values that you have? At the same time, we try to incorporate grounding techniques into it. Okay, you're seeing this ad, this is real, this is happening. We cannot deny that this is happening. But at the end of the day, what is your response to this? If you're feeling affected by this, what can you do about it? Can you look out for a reliable NGO or an organization that is really doing aid for them? And how can we do committed action towards the values that you have? So I feel that yes, the trauma is real, the secondary trauma is real, but what can we do about it? That's the important part. At the end of the day, is how do you respond to whatever trauma is happening around you? Yeah.
On one hand, is responding externally to what we can do to help. I think the second part will be how do we respond to ourselves when we are feeling so in distress? Maybe something that either Marina or Shahril or even Khai can add on to that as well.
I think when we're seeing all this, all these news, of course, it kind of like, especially if it happens somewhere near, and kind of like, okay, is this gonna happen to us? Is this what's going on later? And then with the, recently in Johor, there's this earthquake, the news of the earthquake. So of course, if you say, it's quite near to my place, so then you started thinking, is this gonna happen? But like Kai said just now, okay, you notice this is your worry, these are the things that it's a legit thought that's coming in. You're kind of like, of course you're gonna worry. Why wouldn't you worry? It's a normal reaction. Why wouldn't why wouldn't the anxiety just come on? Because it reflects a reaction. And but what do we do with it? Do we kind of like start collecting things and kind of get ourselves ready for any disasters happening, or we move on and still do whatever necessary? Yeah, maybe we do some preparation, but do we actually use 24 hours just for the preparation, or we do, okay, I'm gonna, yeah, just part of me being ready, like the pepatah that says sediakan payung sebelum hujan. Yeah, you can do that, but you cannot buy all the payung, all the work, kind of like, okay, just prepare for all the hujan to come in. Come on, you can't do that, because there are other things that you do need to do. You still have your life that's still going on. You still have your families to take care of. You still have yourself to take care of. I think it's the allowing yourself to process. You admit, yeah, this, I'm worried about this, but am I going to allow this worry to kind of dictate everything I'm doing at this moment? Yeah.
Mm.
Mm,
Yep, learning how to pivot
mm,
and also accept and validate that yes, this is one part of my experience. However, I also need to remind myself that there are other areas that is also very important in my life. How
mm,
can I then switch from one area to another?
mm.
Yeah. Well, it is 8:58 p.m. now. I think we have a really good discussion going on here. Now, I just have one final question to wrap things up for everybody. In one sentence or less, emphasis on less, what is the single most important lesson that you've learned from your work that you wish more people would understand about mental health in humanitarian response? Anybody can start first.
One word from me: respect.
Respect. Okay. Thank you, Marina. really less. Okay.
It's kind of a meme in a way, but it's okay to not be okay.
Okay. That's a really good one too.
I think for me, I would say limitation and boundaries lah.
Limitation and
Yeah.
boundaries.
So even the heroes, first responder as well, they need to know their limitation and boundaries as well. They have
Mm.
to take it back if they cannot, something like that lah. So everyone needs to know that.
Kind of like knowing our capabilities and abilities also. And if it
Yes.
reached a point where like we encroach into other people, we need to learn how to respect that they have their own decision and we take a step back from that and have all these boundaries in line. Okay, and we are right smack at 9 p.m. I'm just going to double check any questions from the floor. We don't have any at this point. So I think we are good to end the night today. Thank you so much for all your time. And just to let the viewers know, Khai is actually not even in Malaysia. Yet he committed his time to be here with us. Different time zone, yeah? And
Konnichiwa.
very, very thankful for all of you to be here. And well, we will see each other again, hopefully next year for our annual Borak session. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you. Thank
watching.
you.
See you
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Have a nice weekend.